She ordered the lobster. She ordered the vintage wine. She even invited her freeloading friends. But when the $800 bill arrived, my niece pushed it across the table and said, "Happy birthday, Auntie. You can afford this." She didn't know I had the waiter and the police on speed dial.
The Quiet Case Files.
Silence is a luxury you learn to appreciate when you get to my age. 68, I have my routine. I have my garden, my paid-off mortgage, and my peace of mind. I do not like surprises. So, when my phone rang on a Tuesday evening, shattering the quiet of my living room, I hesitated before picking it up. It was Brenda, my niece. I had not heard from Brenda in 6 months. Not since she needed help with a car repair bill that somehow cost more than the car was worth. But this time her voice was different. It was sweet. Too sweet. She wanted to take me out for dinner. For my birthday. She said she wanted to, quote, reconnect, unquote. I told her I was happy just staying in with a cup of tea. But she would not take no for an answer. She insisted on the prime cut, the most expensive steakhouse in the city. When I mentioned that a simple diner would be fine, she laughed and said, "You deserve the best, Auntie." I should have listened to the knot in my stomach right then and there. I agreed, mostly to get her off the phone, but as I hung up, I couldn't shake the feeling that this generosity was going to come with a heavy price tag. I just didn't realize how heavy it would be. I arrived at the restaurant at 7 o'clock sharp. The valet looked at my 10-year-old sedan like it was a dirty spot on a clean floor, but I held my head high and handed him the keys. Inside, the air smelled of truffle oil, searing meat, and expensive cologne. The lighting was dim, the kind of lighting designed to hide wrinkles and menu prices. I scanned the room for Brenda, expecting a quiet booth for two in the back. A place where we could actually talk. A place where I could figure out what she really wanted. Instead, I saw a commotion near the center of the dining room. Brenda was there, waving her hand in the air frantically. But she was not alone. Flanking her were two women I vaguely recognized from her social media pictures. They were loud. They were already drinking. And they were definitely not part of the plan. My heart sank into my shoes. This was not a reconnection. This was a party, and I was the guest of honor only in name. I walked slowly to the table, clutching my purse a little tighter against my side. Brenda stood up to hug me, smelling of sweet perfume and white wine. "Surprise!" she squealed, loud enough for 3 tables to turn and look. "I brought the girls to help celebrate. The more the merrier, right?" I looked at the extra chairs, the preset wine glasses, and the hungry looks in their eyes. I sat down, and before I could even unfold my napkin, I realized I had walked straight into a trap. The waiter appeared at our table, a young man with a stiff collar and a notepad ready. Before he could even wish me a happy birthday, Brenda took charge. She didn't ask what I wanted to drink. She didn't ask if I had any preferences. She picked up the wine list, heavy as a dictionary, and scanned it with a practiced eye that told me she had done this before, just never on her own dime. "We will start with the 1998 Cabernet," she announced, pointing to a line near the bottom of the page. I caught a glimpse of the price column. That single bottle cost more than my weekly grocery budget. The waiter nodded, scribbling it down. Then came the food. It was a frenzy. They ordered the jumbo shrimp cocktail, the dozen oysters on the half shell, the Wagyu beef sliders with the gold leaf garnish. They ordered as if they had been starving for weeks. For the main courses, her friends did not hesitate. They both ordered the surf and turf market price, of course. Brenda ordered the 20-ounce porterhouse steak. When the waiter finally turned to me, the actual birthday girl, I felt 3 pairs of eyes judging me. They expected me to join in the gluttony. Instead, I closed my menu. "I will have the garden salad and the cup of vegetable soup," I said quietly. Brenda rolled her eyes, letting out a sharp, dismissive laugh. "Oh, come on, Auntie," she said. "You are embarrassing us." Order something real. But I shook my head. I knew the value of $1, even if they clearly did not. The conversation was even harder to swallow than the bill I knew was coming. While they tore into lobster tails and prime cuts of beef, Brenda dominated the airwaves. She didn't ask how I was doing. She didn't ask about the family. Instead, she complained. She moaned about her rent going up. She complained about her car payments. She looked at me, sipping her expensive red wine, and said, "You are so lucky, Auntie. Sitting in that big house, all paid off, just collecting dust. You probably don't even know what stress is anymore." I sipped my lukewarm soup and bit my tongue. Luck had nothing to do with it. Working double shifts for 30 years was not luck. Paying down a mortgage instead of buying designer purses was not luck. But I let her talk. I watched them polish off the last of the wine and the dessert menu. Finally, the waiter returned, clearing the debris of their feast. He pulled a black leather folder from his apron, looked between me and Brenda, and asked the question that hangs over every awkward dinner. "Will this be together or separate checks this evening?" I took a breath, ready to pay for my soup and perhaps cover her meal as a generous aunt, leaving her friends to fend for themselves. But before I could even open my mouth to speak, Brenda raised her hand and pointed a manicured finger right at my face. "One check," Brenda declared, her voice loud and confident. She beamed at the waiter. "My aunt is treating us today. It is her birthday privilege to host. She insists on it." The waiter hesitated. He looked at me, his eyes searching for a sign of protest, a shake of the head, anything. But I remained still. I was too shocked to make a sound. The audacity was breathtaking. He bowed his head and walked away. The minutes that followed were the longest of my life. Brenda and her friends chatted idly about a reality television show, completely ignoring the fact that they had just volunteered my bank account for execution. When the waiter returned, he placed the black leather folder on the table. He didn't slide it to the center. He didn't ask who wanted it. Following Brenda's instructions, he placed it directly in front of me. I opened it slowly. The number at the bottom stared back at me in bold black ink. $850. Brenda leaned in, resting her elbows on the table. A smug smile plastered across her face. She saw me staring at the total. "Don't look so shocked, Auntie," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I am a single mom, remember? Things are tight. You have that big pension coming in every month. You can afford this. It is the least you can do for family." Her friends nodded in agreement, like a chorus of bobbleheads. "Yeah," one of them chimed in, wiping grease from her lip. "You can't take it with you when you go, right?" Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It was the quiet, metallic click of a deadbolt sliding into place. I looked at the bill again. $850. For a dinner I didn't want, with people who didn't respect me. I looked up at Brenda. She was checking her makeup in her phone camera, already bored, assuming the transaction was complete. She thought I was weak. She thought I was a pushover old lady who would pay anything just to be included. I reached out and picked up the black leather folder. The table went instantly silent. The laughter stopped. They watched my hands. They watched my face. They were waiting for the flash of a credit card. They were waiting for the victory. Instead, I reached into my purse, but I didn't reach for my wallet. I reached for my reading glasses. I put my glasses on, taking my time to adjust them on the bridge of my nose. I could feel their impatience radiating across the table like heat from an oven. I cleared my throat, not quietly, but with a sharp, authoritative rasp that cut through the restaurant noise. I raised my hand and signaled the waiter. "Excuse me," I called out, loud enough for the manager near the front door to turn his head. "Young man, could you come back here, please?" Brenda's smile faltered. "Auntie, what are you doing?" she hissed. "Just put the card down. People are looking. Let them look," I said calmly. I pulled my phone from my purse. My hands were steady. I unlocked the screen and opened my saved messages. I found the audio file from yesterday. I turned the volume all the way up. Press play. Brenda's voice, tinny but unmistakable, blared from the speaker. Asterisk. I'm taking you out, my treat. I insist. You won't pay a dime, Auntie, I promise. Asterisk. The recording played twice before I hit pause. The silence at our table was now deafening. The waiter arrived, looking nervous. Is everything all right, ma'am? He asked. I looked him dead in the eye. No, I said. There seems to be a misunderstanding about the bill. I opened my wallet and pulled out two $20 bills. I placed them neatly on top of the black folder. My soup and salad came to $28, I told the waiter, my voice steady and clear. This is $40. Keep the change for your trouble. I then slid the folder, heavy with the remaining $810 balance, across the white tablecloth. Stopped right in front of Brenda. Her face had drained of all color. Her mouth was opening and closing like a fish out of water. But, Auntie, she stammered. You can't be serious. I don't have that kind of money on me. I stood up, smoothing the wrinkles from my skirt. That sounds like a personal problem, Brenda, I said. You ordered the lobster. You ordered the vintage wine. You invited the guests. And as you so clearly stated on the recording, you are treating. I looked at her friends. They were suddenly very interested in the pattern of the tablecloth, avoiding eye contact at all costs. I suggest you all check your purses, I added. Because I am leaving. I turned my back on the table. I could feel the panic rising behind me, but I didn't look back. I had paid my share. I had kept my dignity, and I was walking out the door. The explosion happened before I even reached the exit. I heard the chair scrape violently against the floor. You can't do this, Brenda screamed. Her voice cracked, high and shrill, echoing off the high ceilings. You are selfish. You hate your own family. How could you do this to me? The entire restaurant had stopped eating. Every head was turned toward table 12. The manager, a stout man in a dark suit, was already rushing over, his face stern. I paused near the hostess stand, watching the reflection in the glass door. I saw Brenda pointing at my retreating figure, shouting accusations, tears streaming down her face. Tears of rage, not sorrow. She was trying to paint me as the villain, the cruel old aunt abandoning her poor niece. But the manager wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the bill, and then he was looking at Brenda. I heard him ask in a low, firm voice for a form of payment. I heard Brenda's friends muttering, digging through their bags, coming up with excuses. I left my wallet in the car, one said. I thought this was covered, said the other. The trap had snapped shut, but not on the prey they intended. I walked out into the cool night air. The valet brought my car around, and for the first time that night I smiled. I drove home in silence, enjoying the hum of the engine and the empty passenger seat. I made myself a cup of herbal tea and sat in my favorite armchair. But the peace didn't last long. 2 hours later, my phone began to buzz. It buzzed once, then twice. Then it began to vibrate continuously, dancing across the coffee table. It was the family group chat. My sister, Brenda's mother, was the first to text. Asterisk, how could you leave her there? She is humiliated. Asterisk, then came a cousin. Asterisk, that was cold, Martha. She is just a girl. Asterisk, then another relative I hadn't seen in a decade. You have so much money, why make a scene? Brenda had clearly spun a tale of woe. She had rallied the troops. She was painting herself as the victim of a senile, miserly tyrant. My phone screen lit up again and again, a digital firing squad demanding an explanation, demanding an apology, demanding I fix the mess I had supposedly made. I took a sip of my tea. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to defend myself with words. I had something better. I opened the group chat. I didn't type a long paragraph. I didn't engage in the name-calling. I simply uploaded 2 files. First, I posted a photo of the receipt, the itemized list of gluttony, the lobster, the 3 bottles of wine, the Wagyu beef, the total, $850. Second, I posted the voice note. I hit send. I watched the typing bubbles appear and disappear. The chat went silent. My sister stopped texting. The cousins stopped texting. The evidence was irrefutable. They heard Brenda's voice promising to treat me. They saw the bill that proved she was trying to swindle me. The narrative shifted instantly. The messages that followed were not directed at me. They were directed at Brenda. You ordered what? You told her you were paying. Brenda, this is shameful. The family turned. The truth, as it often does, had done the heavy lifting for me. I later learned that Brenda had maxed out 2 credit cards and still came up short. She had to call her mother to pay the rest over the phone to avoid the police being called. The humiliation she had planned for me had boomeranged back with interest. I put my phone down and turned it off. I didn't need to see the fallout. I didn't need to hear the apologies that would come later. Half-hearted and embarrassed. I knew that tomorrow my phone would be quiet. Brenda would not be calling for a loan. The cousins would not be asking for favors. I had drawn a line in the sand, and it was made of concrete. I looked around my living room. It was quiet. It was mine. My assets were secure. My dignity was intact. I had defended my territory against a predator who thought I was weak prey. I finished my tea, washed the cup, and dried it by hand. I turned off the lights and went to bed, sleeping more soundly than I had in years. I had given myself the best birthday present of all. Freedom from the leeches. And it only cost me $40.
If you enjoy radio-style stories like this, please consider staying with us. This is QCF.